Welcome to the Biz Coach Show. In every episode, we share information and advice for small business owners, small business leaders, startups, and entrepreneurs preparing to launch their business. Our mission is to give entrepreneurs the edge they need to succeed. If you're in need of business coaching, head over to mybizcoaches.co and book your free coaching consultation today. The Biz Coach Show is presented by Eric Whitmoyer, the owner of My Biz Coaches, a business coach, serial entrepreneur, author, and speaker, as well as David Macon, a certified professional in talent development, growth expert, writer, and small business strategist. Well, hey, Eric, how are we doing today?
Doing excellent, David, and yourself?
I am doing really good, really good. Always good to hang out with you, talk about all things business. And we've got, I think, a good one for today. So for those who are watching, listening, we appreciate you joining us. And we invite you to subscribe. Every week, we talk about things that are related to small business. So if you're a small business owner, leader, anything like that, we hopefully will have you subscribe and find value in the episodes that we put out every single week. And we love bringing topics that are interesting to you. So definitely connect with us on social media, and we'd love to get your questions or maybe topics you'd love to hear on future episodes. So for today's topic, we're diving into an article that Eric posted on LinkedIn. And by the way, if you don't follow Eric on LinkedIn, he's always posting great content. He also has two newsletters that he puts out. One is the Entrepreneur's Edge, which is a QR code you can scan right there. We'll also have a link in the show notes where you can sign up for that. And then also the Biz Coach Notes. So be sure you're signed up to both of those. A lot of great content every single week. And a lot of times we talk about it on the show and kind of dive deeper into some of those topics. So definitely invite you to subscribe. So Eric, when I saw your LinkedIn post, it definitely resonated with me. It was all about the speed of service, which is really kind of the theme for today. But this is something that just drives me crazy. And as you and I were kind of prepping for our episode, this is something that has been a challenge for me in the work that I do, where I have to routinely book, meeting rooms and venues and things like that. And I get so frustrated because, having worked in sales, which we both have, there's this lack of urgency on getting back to people that want to reserve meeting space. And it just drives me absolutely crazy. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is, when I'm looking to book a meeting space, for example, and I know you've encountered this as you've, booked venues and done events and things, is, I'm just looking at a geographic area and I'm literally calling everywhere that has space. And the first person that calls me back and is in my price range, I'm booking with that person. And so literally it's a game about speed and trying to get back to people. And I've had people call me days or weeks after an initial contact trying to see if I'm still interested, or, hey, I just got your voicemail. And it drives me insane because I know how much business they're losing. And so when I saw your article, I was like, oh man, we got to talk about this, because this is definitely a pain point for me. And I'll try to get off my soapbox as we go throughout the episode. But yeah, it's crazy, man. And I know you see it sometimes working with clients and just kind of out and about working with business owners. So maybe give us just an overview of kind of what this means to you. And then I think you've got some interesting advice heading into the end of 2023 and the new year 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's interesting, David, as you tell your plight about trying to get meeting space or whatever. So what's interesting is this is actually more common than I think that anybody would probably really be able to grasp. And so the irony of the whole scenario is that I don't think that there's always a certain percentage of groups, right? What's 10%, 20%, whatever. So there's a percentage out there that is probably executed at this, at a certain level that, people are like, wow, that's amazing. But generally speaking, the average person probably doesn't experience that.
Right.
And my point is that in the grand scheme of things, I think that most people I would say in the years leading up to, let's say the last 5 years, there's always been a group of people that have been able to do it better than others. Right. And like I said, whether that's 10%, 20%, whatever you want to argue, whatever. But the point is that with technology and the way things are changing and the way things have already changed in the last 5 to 10 years, and how much they're going to continue to change in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
With technology specifically, it baffles me that anybody would have that kind of delay,
Yeah.
let alone the fact that you're having, to have any delay, let alone a delay, right? I
Right.
mean, the information, it could literally be made available. I mean, there's, we coach clients today, let's say our blue collar service clients that are out there, plumbers and painters and landscapers and whatever else, there's all kinds of, there's text back programs so that when somebody calls, even if you're not available to answer the phone call, you're a plumber and you're under the sink somewhere, you're going to stop and roll over and pull the phone out and answer the phone call. So, and even if you're a single person operation, you could still have a text back program where it basically immediately texts them back and says, thank you for reaching. I mean, 90-ish%, I don't want to go too high, but are people calling from a cell phone, right?
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure there's some that might be calling from a desk phone or whatever, an old standard landline, but 90+% are calling from a cell phone. So you have a text back program that reaches back out to the client, says, I apologize, I'm not available right now, but we did get your call. You're, a valued potential client. We'd love to speak to you, blah, 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 whatever. And, if you have any specific information, if you've got a specific need, feel free to text, reply here. Right. And, or even go so far as to schedule an appointment,
right,
using your calendar function, and it can all be automated. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, the fact that people aren't getting back to people within not a timely manner, but like almost immediately, it just baffles me. Yeah. Right. That's the crazy part about this whole thing. And what was interesting is if in the article, you saw that I went to this, it was an event. It was actually a local bank. Well, it wasn't a local bank. It's one of the national bank partners, but it was a banking person who invited me to this event, and they had this gentleman by the name of Jay Bear. Now, I didn't know who Jay Bear was when I went to go see it about 3 months ago. And when I heard him speak, it was just like, this is amazing. This is exactly what I've been arguing with my clients about. Right? There's so much opportunity here to make this better. And, as I read more about, now this is a topic, he's written multiple books on different things, but he does a ton of studies, and then he uses the content from the studies to consult his clients. Yeah. And so, he's somebody that, that I've begun to follow now quite a bit more extensively and see other things that he's done this type of research on. But he did a bunch of research for this particular book, which is called The Time to Win. And you can learn more about it at thetimetowin.com. But Jay's insights were just amazing. And what was awesome is to see that they did the studies and got the data to support, to your point, the concerns and frustrations that many clients have been struggling with for an extended period of time. Right? I don't know. Like I said, there's always a percentage that does it well, but most people don't. Yeah. And there were a number of anecdotal stories that he shared throughout the presentation that really kind of called to the forefront how much of a gap there is here when we talk about service. And the reality is that more and more people are expecting quick, not just quick service, but quality quick service, right? Yeah. The going joke back in the old days, I think it was, you can either have it fast, you can have it good, or you can have it
cheap. Good, fast, cheap. Or cheap.
Yep. Yes, yeah, right, exactly. And pick two, because you can only have 2, 3. Well, now fast is not a consideration. Fast is an expectation.
Right.
Right. So now you can either have it cheap and fast, or you can have it good and fast. But either way, it's got to be fast.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you bring a good point too, right? Because there's maybe 2 aspects to this too. One is the speed of the engagement, and then speed of fulfillment, right? And both of those should be fast. But I'd say if you're going to start somewhere, start on the speed of engagement, or you're losing, business left and right.
Yep. Just like your example with the facilities, the event facilities, they don't get back to you for a week or 2.
Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, think about it. These people know their industry. They should know it pretty freaking well, right? So the reality is they know, yes, we should be booking 6 months in advance and trying to look for the best solution. But generally speaking, I'm going to say that a good percentage, let's say, I don't know, 30, maybe 50%, maybe more. I usually call weeks and months before, weeks and maybe a month or 2 before You know, the venue, they need the venue space, and they know that. Yeah, you should know better. You should know better. You should have called sooner. But the reality is even with 2 or 3 months to plan, we think, oh, that should be a reasonable amount of time, depending on the venue, depending on the circumstances. But these people know that. So to wait a week to respond to somebody,
it's crazy.
I can't imagine who's that busy that they can't reach out to try and generate more revenue. Within a week, you know, within a day, let alone a week.
Yeah, or not respond at all. You know, sometimes you get that. I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah.
And you see that with, you know, service professionals as well. I mean, just you'll submit an inquiry or, you know, request an estimate or whatever, and they just never follow up. I mean, it's just that I'm never, not only did you lose this business, but I'm probably not going to ever look up your business again when I have that need because you never even responded to me. Right. And now you've got that working against you as well.
Well, and I'll use an anecdotal story. So we did turf in our backyard a handful of years ago. And I remember we went a year trying to determine what we were going to do, and the yard looked like crap. And you know, we wanted to make the change, and so we went and we even went to you're familiar with the home shows here in Arizona. And so we went to the home show on 2 different occasions. And we met and that was the plan. We're going to go there. We're going to talk to a bunch of people, the ones that we like. We're going to schedule appointments and have them come and do quotes. So, and, you know, I went with the whole standard, you know, 3 quotes. We ended up getting 4 quotes. We used our existing landscaper, and then we sourced out 3 others from this event. And I say we sourced out 3 others. It took 8 to get 3 people to give us quote.
Jeez.
Yeah, exactly. How crazy is that? And you know, I certainly had a budget in mind. The quotes blew my budget out of the water, unfortunately. I knew it wasn't going to be cheap. I just didn't realize it was that expensive. But so here's a couple of things. So it took 8 to get 3 qualified quotes, and I'm excluding my current landscaper from that experience because he gave us a quote. He was where we started at. And in the end, he was the cheapest, but he was probably the least qualified. He does standard maintenance and occasionally does project, but this was probably a bigger project for him than what he would know. But so we kept that in mind. And then we targeted these other companies that's their primary niche, right? And we did want to do pavers as well. So what was unique about the whole scenario was it took me 3 weeks to get 4 quotes.
Jeez. Wow.
And this was after going to a home show where that's the whole point of going there is to get a bunch of quotes, right? And determine who you want to work with. And then on top of that, so it took me 3 weeks to get the quotes that I wanted. So I had the one for my landscaper, and it took us almost 3 weeks, just short of 3 weeks, 19 or 20 days to get 3 other quotes to make a decision. And then the kicker was, okay, here's the deal. We're interested in your services. We need this done before 4th of July. Nobody, I say nobody, most of them all said, yeah, no, we can't do it before then. And this point, we were probably between 6 and 8 weeks out when we started that process. So, so it was like, because we were having a big 4th of July party and we were going to have people over. It was like, the yard's got to be done.
To look good. Yeah.
A little bit of learning experience on my part. I didn't realize it was going to be that much of a challenge, right? But I mean, just getting people to return our phone calls, to engage with us and give us a reasonable quote that we could look at and say, okay, and then compare and contrast and then decide who we wanted to go with.
That's a long process. I mean, almost a month just trying to get the quotes and figure out who can actually do the job. It's crazy.
Painstaking. It was, and you know, in the end, we're happy with the solution. We're happy with the final result. And, but it was, I mean, it was, and jumping through hoops. I mean, like, you know, I coming home from work early to make sure that I'm there to meet with the guy. He didn't make it easy for me to coordinate. And the irony of that one was he swore up and down he was the best quality, best service. And so he was easily, this is no joke, he was easily 50% more than the medium quote. And it took me, he was the last one I got to do the quote.
Wow.
So, and I'm like, okay, but I'm like,
Yeah. Well, that brings up a good point, Eric. I want to ask you this to kind of transition into our next topic, but
Yeah.
kind of speed warranting a higher price. So let's say that gentleman who is 50% higher than the middle price, if he had come back to you within 2 hours and said, "I can do it this weekend, and it's going to be amazing. I guarantee my work." What do you say? Would you have been inclined to consider somebody that could respond quickly, fulfill quickly at a premium? Would you have considered that?
I would have considered it. And you know what went through my head in the end when it took that long to get him out there, there's no way I believed he would have got the job done on time.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Because he was so adamant about the quality. And I'm like, okay, turf is turf.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I'm not so sure. No, and then I don't know the job. I know at the end we were really happy with the service that we got. But what's interesting is the fact that it took him 3 weeks to finally get. We had to reschedule twice to finally get him to get out there to do the quote. And then he told me how imperative it was to do top quality work, which I appreciated. But in retrospect, when I kind of looked at it, I'm like, okay, but you cost way more. And what are the odds that you're going to get this done on time? I don't believe it. I don't believe that because it's taken this long just to get you here. And if you're that adamant about quality, is it a workmanship issue? Or is it an attention to detail issue, or what is it? But why would it, I just didn't believe he would get it done in time, which is part of the reason why we opted not to go with him.
Sure. Yeah. And I would venture to guess that had his initial interaction with you been faster and more positive, you probably would have been more open to it, right?
Certainly would have been more open to it because we looked at it. And like I said, there was a lot of things he educated me on the process. I'm not denying. As a matter of fact, he did such a good job that he helped me confirm what I wanted from the company we ended up going with and ensuring that they did the job at the level that I was going to be happy with because I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't ask certain things. Yeah. He helped educate me on that. And that might be kind of a crappy thing to say that we own somebody else. But like I said, my wife and I believe fully that there's no way he would get it done in time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And you had a big party, man. You got to make sure it looks good.
That's right, exactly.
So, okay, well, let's maybe explore that a little bit more. I don't know your thoughts, or maybe if during that presentation or in your research you've come across this, but are people generally willing to pay more for things to be done more expediently?
Often, and the studies the show that. As a matter of fact, I think it was. I'm trying to remember the statistic that I read. It's in his book, but so 66% of all consumers say that speed is as important as price when making a buying decision. So 2/3 of people say that speed is as important as price. And to qualify, it is not just speed of response, it's also speed of service, right? So, but it starts, to your point earlier, starts with speed of response. If I can't get you to engage with me, you're not going to be around by the time I make my decision. Yeah, there was at the event that day, somebody made an example, and they talked about how it took a painter 11 days to get back to them to give them a quote.
Wow.
They're like, dude, the job's already been done and the guy's left and gone.
Yeah.
You're just now coming to the table.
Right. Yeah. No, it's true. Well, and I think, certainly that's important. And one of the things I think about, and I don't know if this resonates with you, is, speed, right? Just raw speed is one thing, but also obstacles to doing business, right? The more steps I have to do, the less likely I am to do it, even if I can do them quickly. And one example I think about a lot is, I do a lot of, software, right? And so I'm always trying new software. Is it better? Is it faster?
I've heard you, with this. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I look for is if I go to a site and there's no pricing listed, I'm already kind of upset. It's just, I have no idea if you're even in the same ballpark as my budget, right? Those sorts of things. So that's first thing. Second is, if I can't watch a pre-recorded demo or I can't get a trial account and start playing with it to see if it even meets my needs, that's a second one. And if I don't have both of those, I'm probably moving on, because I don't want to have to sit through a demo, right, with some account manager that hands me off to a sales guy to try to close me. And I'm 4 appointments before I even see a contract and, the full price and discount and, all those sorts of things. And so for me, it's just, if I have two solutions, and one I can get in right now today, play with it, see if it's going to meet my needs, and I know the price right off the bat, I'm probably 70% or more likely to go with that product, even if it's inferior to the other one, because I can get it today and know that it's going to meet my needs.
You know, what's interesting about that, David, too, is that I would have said, my previous self would have said, that's a millennial thing, right? And
Yeah.
we joke about me being
Sure.
a millennial.
Yeah.
I would have said that's a millennial thing, but ironically, I look at it the same way. As a matter of fact, when we were making, what are we going to use for the website design, right? We were trying to determine what we're going to use, and I had my brother helping me out with that. Well, we're going through the process, and I'm like, if I can't get a trial version of it,
yeah,
and kind of know what I'm looking at as far as costs going into it, we're not sitting on millions of dollars, and I'm not going to go spend $25,000 building a design site yet. We probably will in the next iteration, but right now that's not, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And I'm like, if I can't figure this out in, I don't know, 30 to 45 minutes, I'm not interested. It's either not going to be in my budget, to your point, or I'm going to have to go through this entire sales process, which I'm not looking forward to.
Yeah.
I should be able to get in, figure it out. And if I can't, then I'm out. Right.
Yeah.
And so to your point, I look at it the same way. Some of the other statistics actually support that. It's very similar for a lot of people, particularly business solutions.
Yeah.
So the fact that there's a lot of companies out there that make you go through all these hoops, schedule all these different appointments, and then, schedule a demo with somebody, which, by the way, will take me probably a week to coordinate my schedule with their schedule to find a day to schedule a demo. By then, and I'm kind of past it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Well, and I think you probably see this too, is right now, if you're in an industry that engagement and fulfillment are not fast, that's an industry that can be very easily disrupted. And I think there's a huge opportunity there. And you see that with everything from, cars, right? Like, the whole, go on the website, put in your VIN and take some pictures and we'll pick it up. No hassle. You don't got to deal with a salesperson, right? All those sorts of things. You've got that. You've got, I'm thinking like Crumble Cookie, right? It's just totally revolutionizing. You just come in, you order online, pick it up. Like it's a totally different experience for a bakery, right? So there's all these things that if you can implement a little bit of technology, increase some speed, find some efficiencies, you can grow major, right? Get that scale very quickly in those industries.
Absolutely. Well, and that's, that goes back to, we've talked about before about Cody Sanchez and the whole buying the business. Well, the first thing she says is, I don't want something that's overly technical, but at the same time, if I can take a traditional business that isn't normally a tech savvy space and introduce just a little bit of technology that helps with speed of service, which is typically one of the primary pain points. If I can introduce technology that'll help me increase speed of service, I got a game changer.
Yeah.
Right.
Truly. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd mentioned, some of the industries, like real estate is getting, if they've already been hampered, right, with the current circumstance that we're in, but real estate as a whole, well, you can add the whole financial component to that. Like I can now shop for a mortgage. They've been doing it for like the last, 10 years, 5 years, particularly, Lending Tree or whatever. I can go online and figure out what my mortgage is at. Why do I need to go through a traditional broker?
Right.
I can figure out exactly what my mortgage would be and know. And then I know that most of the other competing companies out there are either going to be at the same or right around the same amount as far as what I'm going to end up paying for it. And it's a real simple process that I can do on a Saturday morning in about an hour or two.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, that reminds me here. I don't know how big it is in Arizona, but in Utah, there's an app called Homey, and it's kind of a sell your own home kind of thing, but it's a app that kind of guides you through it, and you save money and all those sorts of things. But it's been very disruptive here because a lot of the real estate agents were not very tech savvy, and so along comes this app and kind of changed the game, and to the point where these other realtors had to kind of pivot very quickly and adopt some technology to keep up and not only speed, but also how do we reduce cost and get fewer points and all those sorts of things, because Homey was doing it for half the price. It's crazy.
Yeah. What's really interesting about that, I was doing some research on so 17% of the US GDP. So whatever trillions of dollars that is, our the GDP for the United States is 17% is made up in the real estate industry as a whole.
Wow.
So not just the real estate agents, but the real estate, the mortgage, the title, right? All that stuff that goes into the real estate business. So that's 17% of our entire GDP. Imagine that switching from the legacy companies that have been around for 75, 100, 100. I think the title company my wife works for has been around like 130 some odd years. And if they don't adapt the technology that's going to allow them to compete, they're going to be the Sears that was around for 110 years and went bankrupt and out of business a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And that's the impact that technology plays. And so, as we're kind of deviating into the whole tech piece of this, but that whole speed of service and that whole, what's my client looking for from an experiential perspective, if you can't adapt, you're dead now. And it's if it hasn't been obvious to this point, it's going to get super obvious in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think maybe one other thing that we haven't talked about is related to kind of customer loyalty. So were there any correlations between speed and customers maintaining loyalty to a business?
Yeah, so there's a couple of statistics. Let me read some of these off. 56% of the people interpret speed as they say, first of all, people interpret speed as caring. If you're fast with your service of my solutions, and it could be following up on a claim, it could be responding to a question I asked, it could be whatever, it could be part of the sales process, whatever it is. But people interpret speed as caring. That's a very common theme now. 56% of the people feel appreciated when the service comes in as expected or better. It's been from a time perspective. 53% feel valued and 41% feel respected. So appreciated, valued, and respected. And in that 56, 53, and 41. So it's pretty significantly important to these people that they're expecting to get good quality service quickly. Right. And then the other one was that 62% of customers feel they're disappointed when business responds slower than they expect.
Yeah.
So almost 2/3 of people, if it's slower than they expected, they feel disrespected. Oh, sorry, disappointed. And then 30% feel disrespected.
Yeah.
If people don't respond. So I bring that up.
I agree with all of those, Eric.
More preaching to the choir. And so what's interesting about that is that, you're talking about loyalty. I would certainly appreciate my company. If I submitted something and I asked for, which by the way, literally has happened probably, I'm going to say half a dozen times in the last 3 or 4 months, just since I saw this information. And it makes, of course, I'm probably even more hyper aware of it now, but I'm like, wow, it's been a whole week and nobody's responded to that email yet. Yeah. Like I literally signed up 2 weeks ago, I signed up for a program that's going to take place next weekend. And so a week ago today, I sent him an email and said, I have a conflict. Something's come up. Can I reschedule for another time when this training is going to be available? Or could I reallocate my dollars to be applied in a different way? Right. Yeah. And we're not talking about a cheap program that I signed up for. And so here's the thing. I sent them and said, because it was a defined timeline. They're delivering it over a 3-day span of time. And nobody's responded to me. It's been an entire week and nobody's responded to me.
Do you feel disappointed and disrespected, Eric?
I feel disrespected at this point. I'm like, it wasn't a cheap program. And oh, by the way, I can't get anybody to respond to me. And I had 3 different people attached on that email. Somebody couldn't reach out to somebody and say, hey, somebody should reach out to this guy and see if he's cool with this,
Right. Crazy.
So man. It's interesting. And so, loyalty. I mean, you couldn't get a better example of loyalty than people telling you straight up, I feel disrespected or disappointed that you didn't respond to me in time.
Yeah. So it's funny you say, I didn't even think about that until you just shared that stat. Is I had a situation, one of my cars wasn't starting. It's a whole thing. Ended up not being as big a deal as I thought, which is a little embarrassing, but I ended up towing it to my normal mechanic. I've been going there for years and the service is great. They're really friendly. They're normally on top of everything. And I brought it in and it was going to be 2 weeks before they could even diagnose what was wrong with it.
What?
Yeah. And I'm like, I've been I've been coming here. You guys have thousands of dollars of my money tied up in fixing vehicles and stuff over the years. You can't get somebody to take 10 minutes and just take a look, and see what's going on with it. And well, we might be able to sneak it in. And I'm like, I can't go 2 weeks without a car. So
Right.
I'm going to take it somewhere else. So I towed it somewhere else. And now I'm kind of like, man, they got me right in. They were friendly. They don't have the cool app that has all the pictures of the vehicle inspection, all that. But I'm like, but hey, if they can get me in same day, solve my problem, and I got my vehicle back, that's worth it. I may switch. That's literally a conversation that we're having. And it's disappointing because this other company's great and we love them. We've been very loyal to them. But one time I'm questioning it, honestly.
Yeah.
So as you're talking about that, I mean, truly, that's my experience right now that I was just living through.
Wow. 2 weeks for an assessment, just to give you an idea of what's going on with it. Wow.
Yeah. Not, hey, we got to tear the whole engine apart, or, we got to wait on a part that's back ordered. I mean, we won't even look at it for 2 weeks. I'm like, what? It just blew my mind. So yeah, as you say that, yeah, again, I'm getting a little heated this time. I'm getting a little fired up today. Yeah. I didn't know this topic would do this to me.
That's funny. Yeah, no, that's crazy. And to your point, I know for a fact that we've experienced that a couple of different times. We're pretty loyal to the person we've been working with for quite a few years now. And I would never, as a matter of fact, I know the owner personally. And if somebody told me it was going to be more than a few days to look at my car, I would call him. And what I'll tell you right now is he would say, bring it on Saturday morning and I'll meet you there and we'll make sure it gets taken care of.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Friday. He would tell me, meet me on Saturday morning. I'll take a look at it, So, and that's not bragging. That's the level of service we've come to expect from working with them, which is why we're loyal to them.
Yeah.
Right. And he sure as heck would never say to me, you need to wait 2 weeks for us to do a diagnostic.
You get his name from you when we're done today. I'll drive to Arizona to be faster.
Faster in 2 weeks for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else on this topic you wanted to review?
Yeah. There was one other thing I wanted to touch on, and it's a series of more stats here, but it says that when is speed most important to a customer? And it says, so for instance, to find out about a new product, 67% of the people said that was important to them. When scheduling an appointment, 79% said it was important to them.
Yeah.
When paying for a product or service, 74%. Getting product delivered, 76%. Getting a product question answered, 77%. And getting help with a problem, 83%.
Wow.
So on most of those, that's 3/4 of the time people said speed was important, was of significant importance when determining considerations, right? And at minimum, finding out about a new product, 2/3 of people said that was important. Speed was important with that.
I want to meet these people that say it's not important. What's going on in their lives that, get back to me when you have time. I got oodles of it. Yeah, I don't care. I mean, who are these people? I want to meet them.
Well, interesting you should ask that question, David. You just totally teed that one up. So they also said, this urgency index that they measure, they looked at the people, they broke it into generations, and the initial assumption would be tech savvy millennials, Gen Zs. They're going to be the ones that likely want the service now, right? Yeah. And ironically, it was completely flipped.
No way, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Baby boomers were the least patient, and the most patient were the Gen Zs.
Interesting. That is not what I would have expected.
Totally not what I expected at all. And that was the data that they reflected from their studies. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Of course, then it makes you reflect a little bit and say, well, maybe that's because the baby boomer doesn't have a lot of time.
Fair. Morbid, but fair.
Yeah. I'm right on the cusp. So I'm probably just a few years outside of that group. So, but we say that in jest, but the reality is I think that the reality is that, I've been busting my butt for so long. I'm always on the go. That's culturally, that's different. The baby boomers and the Gen Xers like myself, that is culturally different between those two groups versus the millennials and the Gen Zs.
Yeah.
They're like, nah, I'm just going to chill a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
it's a common theme with the younger generations that it's like, I'm not going to do what my parents did. I'm not going to stress myself out and go 1,000 miles an hour. And so ironically, I think that that's part of that reflection of in that
Sure.
data. But it's funny because I wouldn't have expected that at all from that perspective. But I think that's an important thing to consider too, because is it because I have more pressing things in my life that I need crap done sooner, faster, right?
Yeah. Interesting. Huh. Well, I want to get your thoughts on one other topic here, which is, and of course, if you got more stats, keep them coming. But one of the things that I've heard, right, from different entrepreneurs, and I think you maybe even can relate to this with your clients, is the idea that if I can just get my schedule fully booked out several weeks out, I'm doing great, right? I've got predictable revenue, right? All those things. And to a point that is true. But I think it's also important to realize as you hit that kind of scale threshold, you have to start to come up with a plan for how you take on new business when you're already maxed, right? Whatever that strategy looks like, whether that's bringing on additional people, having subcontractors, having a referral network, right? There's different strategies you can employ to continue to scale, right? And break through that barrier, because inevitably, if you are doing things right and you are doing things quickly and you're delivering high quality, you're going to get the business, right? And eventually you're going to get to this kind of maximum capacity, and you're not going to be able to grow past it until you solve that. So I'd love to get maybe your thoughts on that, or maybe even any recommendations you have.
Yeah, it's a great point, David. And quite honestly, probably reflective of your auto repair place.
Yeah.
It's like they probably did such a great job that they're to the point now, for whatever reason, and could have been unique. They had lost some mechanics or something like that. But the success is actually can be a detriment if you're not prepared for it. To your point, absolutely. And as I reflect back on, for instance, my trucking business, one of our challenges was, I couldn't say no. Clients would people would reach out to us and say, hey, we've got a company that's got 4 lanes going from Northern California to Southern California. Would you be interested in it? I mean, when somebody calls you up and asks you if you'd like, I don't know, $50,000 worth of business, would you be interested? I'm kind of like, yeah, sure, I'll take that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, but to your point, there is a legitimate inherent problem there, in the sense that if you're not poised to bring that on and you're already kind of at max capacity, what do you do, right? Yeah. So for instance, one of the things that we did at the trucking business is we went and we scouted out and found independent contractors, truckers that weren't necessarily our direct contractors, but there were people that we were familiar with that ran smaller operations, a couple of trucks here and there, but they could ebb and flow with us when seasons came. Because, like, for instance, when somebody says we have 4 lanes, for instance, that's a truck running a certain direction 4 times, right?
Yeah.
Now that doesn't necessarily mean that you get it doesn't mean that it all comes like 4 times a week.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
What I learned the hard way was that when they say that, it could very well be 12 lanes for about 3 months and then like 2 lanes for about 9 months.
Yeah. Right.
So it was the irony of that is like seasonality, right? We did a lot of wine hauling, and as you can imagine, wines comes in seasons, right? So once it's what do you call it? The wine's picked, the grapes are picked, the wine's created, and everything like that. Then you're shipping it out, and it's coming in droves, right? And so all of a sudden, I'm like, I need 6 more trucks than I have, and so I'd have to go out and find somebody. But I don't want a permanent 6 more trucks, because I may not have the business to go absorb that after the wine dies down in 2 months, right? So yeah, it's very similar, and so I think that subcontracting is absolutely a focus. With all of the emphasis on side hustles and things like that, there's so many opportunities where you could look for people to fill gaps like that. And as I mentioned before, we do a lot of service-based businesses. So right now, some of the companies that are really getting their teeth kicked in are the trades, the blue collar trades.
Yeah.
You know, the HVAC, plumbers is a big one. Painters are being affected. People are like, I don't really want to do this hard, laborious work. There's people that are willing to do it. Often, though, people aren't willing to put in the time to build the craft and things like that. And so what you're finding is you have an aging group of people that don't have the bandwidth to take on the amount of business that's necessary because people are opting out of the industry after so many years of doing it. Because it's, you know, and so now what you're finding is, but what you could do, right? What they're finding is that people are like, I'm opting out because I don't want to do that work anymore. But could I bring that person back as a consultant or a trainer, right? A trainer to train my electricians to be, you know, better with HVAC units or you know, whatever, right? It's like, is there ways for me to capitalize on that knowledge base of those individuals where they don't have to do the physical labor work because they're, you know, maybe up there in age or something, or physically not capable of doing that work anymore for whatever reason. But you could leverage that. So how could you do that? Or maybe they're willing to come back, but they'll do it on a short-term basis. You know, we recently spoke about a peer of ours that has help me out with the type of business he got, a handyman business.
Yeah. Oh, yep.
Yeah, and you know, victim of own success. Lots of very happy clients, continue to get referrals. So busy, he's booked out weeks at a time, and couldn't absorb new business. But my bet is that with a couple of phone calls to the right kind of people, strategically discussing, hey, how'd you like to help me out on certain jobs from time to time, or pick up some of the overflow when I get overrun, and I'll pay you a premium. You know, even if you only made 25% of the money that you would normally make, but it's not lost business, it'd still be money found.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. And now you have a strategy for when you scale the business. You could bring that person in, help them. You could amp up your marketing activity, scale up the business while leveraging that subcontractor or whatever the case may be, and then leverage the time to train a new employee and bring them on and make that part of your permanent business model.
Absolutely.
So a lot of it comes to just, you know, thinking outside the box and figuring out what are other solutions. But
yeah, no, and I think, you know, you bring up a lot of good points there, but I think as you do your strategic planning as a small business owner, right? And if you're not, well, then you're already behind. But if you are, then, you know, be thinking about those things, your speed, your quality, your capacity, right? And those are kind of balancing factors that you have to continually think about and plan for, which I think is really important. But I think one of the things, right, is you're talking about that is having, you know, let's say it's that referral network that, you know, whether you bring them in as a subcontractor, whatever that looks like, is I've even seen, you know, because you don't want to lose those people entirely. So it's, hey, you know, they can help you out for this job. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 20% off your next job after that when I can have the capacity to bring you back on, right? And so there's other retention methods that you can use to where you're not just giving away business permanently and getting that one-time hit. You can bring them back in with a discount once you've got your capacity back. So different things like that you can employ. It's all just about creative problem solving.
Yep. And the only thing I'm going to say there as it's relevant to the conversation, not as much to the topic, but certainly to the conversation. I guess it is. But the point is that at the end of the day, you're only going to be able to get the creative problem solving that you just referenced when you step out of the day-to-day and focus on your business, right? If you can't separate from the day-to-day nuances and step back and work on your business instead of in your business, you're not going to be able to think through creative light. And so what we find is our clients are like, well, I don't have time to do that. And I'm like, the reason you don't have time to do that is because you're not making time to figure out when you could resolve that. And that's why a lot of these problems continue to exist with these businesses with timing, is that they don't step back and look at, okay, there's a solution out here to fix this speed of service problem, right? Speed of response time, things like that. There's technology solutions out there. Yes, I'll have to invest a little bit of time to figure out how to do it. Yes, I'll have to invest some time to train somebody how to use this program. But the reality is, if I do that, I could grow my business by 25%.
Right. Yep.
Right. There was one other thing that Jay mentioned, and it's what we can't capitalize or what we can't recognize, is lost business because of speed of service. So, for instance, we referenced and we joked about the service provider that doesn't get back to you for days or weeks in some cases. Here's the worst part: is that they come in. So this is kind of the opposite of what Jay suggested, but in my scenario with the turf, the guy that came in with like 50% higher than the next closest, right? At the end of the day, I'm sure he did great quality work. I don't know that it would be worth 50% more. Yeah. Right. That was the trade-off. Is it really going to be worth 50% more? But what I would say is that he didn't get the job, but does he know why he didn't get the job?
Yeah. Good point.
Often what he didn't get the job because we didn't believe he'd get it done in time. Right. Yeah. Had nothing to do with his price. I mean, yes, it had a little bit to do with the price, but way more that we just didn't believe he'd get it done in time. Yeah. And consequently, when you look at clients, imagine the guy that came in last, but then also is the cheapest.
Yeah.
So he's the cheapest and he's the slowest to respond.
Yeah.
And chances are you probably already made your determination because the other person was 30 to 50% later than everybody else, not cheaper, later, right? Yeah. And consequently, but they think that this is where the loss is, right? I don't know why I didn't get the job. So now I lower my price next time to get it. And then at some point, service and price get to a point where the price is so low and I'm okay with whatever service level I get because the price is so much different than everybody. Let's say 50% cheaper than everybody else. That I take it and I'll tolerate the less than quality service because the price is so cheap. And then I do that. And then now they're giving up all their profits.
Yeah.
They're probably barely making, if any, money. They're barely just paying themselves at best. Yeah. And consequently, they're not learning anything of what's actually wrong inherently with the business.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're spot on. Well, and it's interesting as you're saying that. I don't know why I keep coming back to this. Somebody out there must need to hear this. But if you find that you're in an industry like that, that's a huge opportunity, right? So imagine, right, kind of niching down a little bit and being the turf guy that specializes in jobs that are under a certain amount of square feet, and it's same day. I mean, can you imagine that? Yeah. I mean, hey, call me by this time, and I can go there. I can pick up. I do these 10 samples of turf. Tell me the one you want. I'll have it here same day, installed same day. I mean, no brainer, right? And people would pay 20, 30% more for that, and he would be able to book, right? Because it's a smaller job. We see that in Utah with concrete right now. There's just not a lot of people that do concrete.
Yeah.
They all do big jobs. And if you have a small job, like, get in line. Like, I'm going to charge you whatever I want, and I'm going to take as long as I want because I'm going to squeeze you in around when I got the last little bit of something in the truck that I didn't use on my big job, and I'll swing by and you better be there. And if not, I'm going somewhere else. I mean, versus the guy who comes in and, hey, I specialize in, the little pads of concrete for your steps or whatever. I mean, that guy could have business all day long, but people don't always think about that, right? They're always going for the big fish. They don't always see the volume play. So not really related to what we're talking about, but it keeps coming to my mind. Sure.
No, that's a good message. I mean, the reality is that's the type of things that when people step back and look at their business, they're like, well, there's an opportunity here, right? To your point, particularly when you're very familiar with the industry. And that's why as clients, we really like to look for the good tradespeople. They're ones that are really good at what they do. They just maybe don't have the insight that we might be able to provide for them that are going to help them be that much more efficient, that much more. And we help them determine like that there. Now you're talking about a market dominating position, right?
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
Now here's what I do differently. And maybe it's not same day, maybe it's next day turf installation, but give me a job today and within 24 hours, I'll have it installed. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Depending on, small jobs.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if you're, go ahead.
One last stat I got to share. This is an important one. And I got a great example to share too. So we're talking so much about speed and how important it is. And we were talking about, was it price versus speed? And when does price and speed, where do they intersect? Well, here's one thing that was made very well aware of, and you can see it at play in a lot of places today. 1 in 4 customers will pay as much as 50% more.
Wow.
50% more to be able to not have to wait in a line.
Wow.
Case in point, Disneyland.
Yeah. Right. True.
I don't think you can do it in California anymore. I think they did away with it. Something about the People's Republic of California. But no, there's the people will pay to get the fast pass.
Yeah.
Right. The people will pay to not have to stand in line, and they'll pay as much as 25% will pay as much as 50% more. What it actually is a really good example of that beyond the fast passes. Last time you checked into a hotel, David, you got there. Now let's use Vegas because that's a really good example. But you go to Vegas, right? You go to Vegas. You get there early. You got some kind of function you got to do. You go to check in early.
Yeah.
You know darn well you're not going to be able to check in.
Right.
So, but you get there with the hope that maybe they'll have a room they'll let you check into, right?
Yeah.
And all you really want to do is get your name on the top of the list, so you're the first one to get your key at 4:00 when they start releasing rooms, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So, well, now what they've done is they've realized that people will pay as much as $30 to be able to check in just about, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 hours earlier than normal, so you can drop your stuff off in your room.
I'd do it 100%.
So I can get my keys now, so I don't have to stand in line for 45 minutes when everybody else is checking in when I should be in dinner or having a few drinks or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great example. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So if it's 25%, 1 in 4 people. Now here's the kicker. You've already paid for the room.
Right. Yeah.
You're getting an extra $30 just to check in a few hours early so you can drop your stuff off and not have to worry about dragging it all over Vegas through the casinos or wherever you're going, or paying a bellhop and then making sure that they didn't mess up and lose your bag or something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Dude, imagine the incremental revenue of that over a year, right?
So they did a quick example, and they it was really kind of dumbed down, but it like for a decent sized hotel, I want to say 400 rooms or something like that, they equated it to about $1.8 million in additional incremental revenue.
Wow.
With zero cost associated to it.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah. So 25% of your clients are willing to pay up to 50% more for faster service.
Wow.
So if fast isn't important to you or hasn't been important to you, you need to consider how it could be more important to you. So those are examples of the types of information we provide our clients and help them understand, hey, you got a good business here. How can we get just a little bit more out of it? Yeah. Right? Absolutely. Your business is currently making 15%, 20% net margin. How we can get 25 or 30? Yeah. Implement a few of these strategies to capture a little bit more business, and lo and behold, there you go.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, a lot of good stuff. I'll just say that if you are struggling to get that perspective on your business, or that's a challenge, right? Taking that step back and kind of critically and objectively assessing all those different factors, or you just want some recommendations on how to do things a little faster, we definitely encourage you to head over to Eric's website, mybizcoaches.co, where you can schedule a free consultation with him or one of his coaches. And they'd love to kind of brainstorm with you and put together a plan on how you can capitalize on that and make even more money, right? Which is what it's all about there. So also, this was based on an article that Eric wrote on LinkedIn. So just again, in case you missed it, definitely encourage you to follow and subscribe so you can sign up for both of those newsletters, get awesome small business tips every week. So Eric, it's been fun. Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Should we tip them off of what we're going to talk about next week?
Oh, I don't. If you want to, I don't know. You're usually the one who doesn't want to let the cat out of the bag. But yes, please, if you want to give a little preview for next week.
Yeah, as we're following along with the newsletter here, next week we're going to touch base on AI. So it's the next 8 weeks. This week, the next 7 is going to be each topic is going to be one of the 8 things that we suggested that our clients should consider for 2024, and how to best implement or strategically plan for these types of these things for 2024 for their businesses.
Love it. Awesome. Yeah. So definitely subscribe. You don't want to miss out on that, both to the newsletter and to the show, because we'll be talking about it in more detail here. So Eric, as always, thanks, man.
Awesome. Appreciate it, David.
Okay. Awesome. Hey, we'll see you on the next episode.